Hello, hello, hello. Happy beginning of July, July 1st. How's everyone doing? A new quarter begins. Good morning, John. Yeah, Elon and Trump. It's interesting. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Bull Strike. Good morning, Dean. There's those red book numbers. Thanks for putting that in sterling. Hope you are doing well. 4.9 versus 4.5. Nothing really shocking there. Good morning, David. Happy July to you. Good morning, Anissa. Uh, Life would be boring without drama and suspense. Oh boy, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. Uh, Good morning, Harold. I remember Ross Perot, the third party run in the 90s. Good morning, Rick. Good morning, Ted. How are you doing? All right, more people filtering in. We have the fireworks from the Trump and Elon show. We have the big garbage bill that they're trying to pass. Complete garbage. Oh, well, you know what? This country is not going to get fiscally responsible at all. We're going to grow our way out of debt. You're just going to add on more debt. You know what? And then you have him. What's his nickname for Powell? Too late, Powell. He keeps just calling him names, and he wants rates like at what 1%. Oh boy, you want to talk about inflation then? Oh boy. All right. I mean, the Fed can probably start cutting maybe towards the end of this year, but they should have been a little more aggressive and really knocked out inflation. But we'll see. Good morning, Shazabab. Good morning. I probably didn't say that right, but sorry if I butchered it. I am really bad with pronouncing stuff. I've always been bad with pronouncing stuff, especially names. I can barely say my own name. That's why my parents had to give me a real simple name, else I wouldn't even be able to say my own name. All right, where do we sit? We got Powell coming up. Powell going to be doing the old speaky speak. We'll have to see what he has to say. We got global manufacturing PMI. We got the JOLTS job openings and quits. So that's 10 a.m. Eastern. Coming up on that in about 54 minutes. Again, we have the Dallas Fed Services Index coming up at 10:30 Eastern. But nothing, I mean, manufacturing is, I'm going to keep an eye on manufacturing prices because that is still very elevated. It's going to expect to come down a little from previous, but I'm going to keep an eye on that and the employment numbers. All right, but their prices are still high, employment's in contraction. So, where do we look this morning? Tesla down on the Rock'em Sock'em robot fight. Rock'em Sock'em robots, Trump versus Elon. Apple, because their AI is garbage, and they might have to buy a third-party AI, is up on that news. Okay, and chips are finally pulling back. First of the year, we're done with our end-of-quarter window dressing, but everything else, we're sort of flat to pulling back. If I refresh this, let's see, we got consumer cyclical leading the way down, energy and basic materials. Gold, remember I said watch for a percent beat buy setup yesterday, and gold rocketing through yesterday's highs. The Fed Watch tool still has close to 80% for a pause, but then cut in September, cut in October, cut in December. 3 cuts priced in now. Not just 2, 3 cuts because Trump wants it down to 1%. We're fully solidly in greed mode in Schiller PE, the dirt cheap market at 37.83. Oh boy, what could go wrong here? In earnings, we got Constellation Brands. That's the only thing I'm going to pay attention to after the close, but nothing market moving. So also remember, no live stream on Friday due to July 4th in the US of A. Good morning, Tony. Good morning, PMG. Baltimore actually had a tornado yesterday, Federal Hill area, and I moved from Texas to get away from all that weather. Yeah, tornadoes in that part of Maryland aren't generally normal. And I lived in Texas 3 different times. Lived in north of Dallas in Prosper, Texas, lived in the Houston area, and lived in Austin. So, yeah, there was bad weather in Texas. I remember the hailstorms, though, the roof destroying hailstorms. Oh boy, that was always fun. Okay, what is it? What am I watching? What am I watching? So, we have a triggered mini wedge against the 4-hour rotation zone. This bottom line you see on the daily chart. We have cycles at the top. We're massively overbought condition. Remember, we were above the Bollinger Bands even. I'm keeping an eye. The full target for the wedge is right by the bottom of the rotation zone. But before we could even get there, the top of the rotation zone, close to the prior major highs, that's the first key level of key support. So where are we looking at? If we can manage, our minor support is coming in about the 62.25 level. If we get through there and the bottom of the rotation zone coming in about 62.15, whereas if we sell off there, I'm watching for a first potential bounce, not necessarily the new highs right now, but then another rollover. But the next key area is right around 6190 to 6200, and then the first level of major support is around 6160 to 6165 before we can even start a real breakdown. That would just return us to the daily rotation zone. So I'm watching for rollover plays. Okay. Again, there's a lot of support in the way. Now, if we do break out, if we do get back above, we have very key resistance about the 62.55 area. There's been some selling pressure up there. If you get through there, you have the highs coming in at 62.65, 50 to be exact. And then the minor projections, should it continue the run, 62.75, really 62.76 and 62.86. Remember, we're at cycle tops on the weekly and we're massively overbought. And we haven't even had a multi-week pullback since the tariff tantrum. So we've had a weekly pause. You can see pausing bars, but not even a major multi-week pullback. Okay? So that's where that sits. We first have to start chipping away at all these levels of support. Unless it starts happening with momentum to the downside, I got it on any shorts. I got to aggressively lower stops because there's lots of potential stopping points for bounce plays. Texas, what a shit show. Yeah, we actually get a Friday holiday. You know what? I'm telling you, you should just call July 4th Independence Day every year and make it. I'd prefer a Friday, but I'd settle for a Monday. Either make it the first Friday or the first Monday of the month. And let's just call it Independence Day, and let's make it a 3-day weekend. You know what's the worst? When July 4th falls on like a Wednesday. So you got to work Monday, Tuesday, you get a silly Wednesday off, then you got to go back and work Thursday, Friday. No, let's just call it Independence Day and have it the first Friday or Monday of July. All right. Good morning, Kevin. So, NASDAQ keeping an eye on the same thing. We have this wedge. If I put it on the daily, the full target for the wedge is by the bottom of the rotation zone. However, in the way of that, the first key area I'm watching is about this 22,650, just in front of the rising rotation zone. Then I'm watching about 22,4, and then we're going to the bottom of the rotation zone. However, the first key level, the first key thing, we got a very little key level around this 22,735 area that it's got to break below. Still going to be watching for rollover plays, but that's the key area it's really got to start getting below. So On any bounce plays, I'll still be looking for rollover plays because on the daily, again, cycle top, very overbought, extended from the rotation zone. But even these pullbacks don't do anything. Again, weekly at the top and very overbought. And you're coming into a prior anywhere from about 22,120 to 22,400 is a major support zone now. So on this pullback, it doesn't do technical damage. I mean, there's no technical damage that can be done until we got it back below about 20,500. It would just be an ordinary pullback. The Dow does have a little mini double top. Has a 4-hour mini double top. Would need a 4-hour close below 44,185. Again, if you look at it on the daily, look how overextended this is from the daily. It doesn't even take you back to the daily. So I'm keeping an eye on that. The Russell technically has this mini double here, and here, and on the conservative side targets, the first and second targets work. It would need a 4-hour close below 2173.6, 2159, and then 2151. 2151 also being a very key area for support. That would just take it back into the daily rotation zone. So VIX, little pop, but nothing to talk about there. Unless the VIX really starts accelerating back above about 1750, I'd still be in choppy pullback mode. The DAX coming back into key support. Going to be seeing if it bounces here. If we start closing back below about 23,750, then I'm targeting back to 23,500. The notes coming up to a prior very key resistance area and backing off a bit. Going to be watching for that to retest the support area about 111.19. The yields bouncing here. Going to be watching for a retest of about 4.27 with a little divergence here and cycles at the bottom. What else? Crude still caught in a very tight range, so nothing at the first target from the daily double. Natty gas continues. We're at the 4-hour double that was invalidated yesterday and looks like it's going to get back below the 200. A lot of shift into weakness now with natty gas. So and this is not a double bottom. But gold, this is the trade of the day. We had the percent B buy setup. Again, there's your settings. 5-period length, Bollinger Band percent B, high-low close divided by 3. On a 1 standard deviation, breaks above the high. It's got to follow through to the close, which looks like that's easily going to happen. But that's why I said watch yesterday's high. Well, I said yesterday watch Monday's high, which we blew through. So we're now back above the rotation zone. So if we close above the rotation zone, I'm just using the prior harmonic areas about 33.68 and 34.32. Silver was not a percent beat buy setup, and still getting very key resistance at this 36.85. So if silver bounces again, I'm going to watch about how it closes in relation to that. Copper, which we haven't covered in a few days, broke out last week. We contract rolled, but coming into a very key resistance area. Dollar index continues to break down, hitting the next cluster and bouncing a bit. The next cluster was this 96 area, dipping just below that. So we've wiped out, in the short term, we've wiped out all of our key target clusters. So I need to wait for a pausing bar. This is getting very, very oversold with cycles at the bottom. We'll be watching for a bounce play to retest the rotation zone. Euro continuing to march higher. The next key area is 119.24. What else do we have? We have the spiders. Again, very overextended. You got the wedging pattern up there. Very steep. Key major support is back at about 609.50 to 610. Just a slight gap down today. So first thing on any rally would be to the gap fill, roughly 617.85, and you still 623.97 out of as another key target higher. That's really about it. If you're looking for shorter term stuff, I'd be using these pullback harmonics. Okay, my first little area, I'd be looking about 612.50. Then closer to right around about 608.50 with the rising bottom of the 4-hour rotation zone. The Qs, we came up, hit the next harmonic yesterday. You see right there, hit the next harmonic, and now gapping down. So on a rally, 551.64 would be to the gap fill, but very overextended. Same thing here. Going to be using the last little run up. So if we start breaking down and we can't regain the 549 level, I'm watching between about 545.50 to about 546.50 as the first key area of support. We start breaking down below that 545.50. We'll be watching closer to about 542 as targets and for any shorts and support. What else do we have? Let's check in on the good old Bitcoin. Up to the top of the channel and looks like it's rolling down at this point on a bigger pullback. Going to be paying attention to roughly about 104.900 to start. That's the first key rollover target if we start getting below this 106.200 area. Tesla gapping down below the 200. So I'm back to now because this is failing. I'm on any rallies. I'm going to watch it for rollover plays in Tesla again. For rollover plays, but it's really got to get through this 282 area to get more aggressively short. NVIDIA, not much to talk about there. Broadcom, little gap down there, but again, coming into very key support. These things have to start really breaking down. That's the problem. That's why we could get, if we're putting in a more substantial top, I think it's going to be more of a rounding top because you have a lot of stuff that can come into support. What else have I missed in the chat? Yeah, Robinhood's because they're going all in on crypto. This has become a speculative mania. This thing, I mean, can it keep going? Yeah, but we're going to get a vertical correction at some point. This thing's going to run out. You have the magnet price still at 100. Okay, but this is good. Vertical up, vertical down. Vertical up, vertical down. So if you're trailing, really, if this does try to get closer to this 100, that's going to be a really strong resistance psychological number. Car. Yeah, car closed just over the 62.5. So again, could still be looking for pullback plays now, but this is majorly overextended. I'd be looking for, and I'm actually looking for pullback plays in this, but I'm going to be very patient in this because, again, I've got to see it hold or at least consolidate. You got the 200 and you got this 157. That's what I got to see it hold with the rising rotation zone. All right. I got to see it hold in this vicinity around 157.50. Am I seeing a double top on Apple on the hourly? Double top on Apple on the hourly. I'm not seeing one. I'm not seeing one on Apple. This is not a double top. There is no double top there. So, what David Atkinson brought BBAI, Big Berry to I to his attention. I was told, let's see. Again, based off this, I'd be looking, unless it can close back above 736, I'd be watching for rollover plays. There's no great topping pattern just yet. This pulled back, so it's bouncing again up on a gap. Would I be chasing it at this point? No. Even if it closed above 62.5, I'd be looking for pullbacks to do something. But this is in the major rollover zone. So I would definitely not, with cycles at the top and very overbought, would not be chasing it at this point. Would not be chasing at this point. Again, this key area from yesterday's low is going to be very key. Right now it's bouncing up, which could be setting up a potential double top. If it does continue to rally, 736 is key on the closing basis. All right. That's really about it. Again, watching for the good old rollover play, sitting against some very key support right now. So any bounces I'm watching for, I can't be any more clear. I'm watching for rollover plays. Sterling said the same thing. Well, Sterling has learned a lot of stuff very, very well and is very, very smart. So, you know what? He can take the channel over. Then I get to sleep in. Oh, up again at 3:45 this morning. 3:45 every day. All right, with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Let's kick off July. Again, we're overextending in so many things, so I am being very patient on pullbacks, but still watching for buys on bigger pullbacks. We just need to reset some of these massively overbought conditions. With that, what's today? Tuesday? So tomorrow we got Wednesday, Thursday, and then that's it for the week. Remember, non-farm payrolls is Thursday. Okay? Update on GIS. We had this little mini double that's played out. I kept an eye on that yesterday, but it's back into the rotation zone. I'm still watching for a stronger bottoming pattern. All right, we have earnings, which they missed on revenue. Now, bigger picture, this is not a strong enough bottoming pattern. I'm still watching for rollover plays to complete a stronger bottoming pattern. This was just a bounce back into the rotation zone. Even if it continues to rally to 53, I'd still be watching for rollover plays, and then I'll keep an eye for the pullback correction to see. That would be the secondary direction back down. So there's no major update. There's just a little mini double, but that was just like an intraday trade back to the rotation zone. Nothing that you're going to want to do for longer term, either a swing or investment trade just yet on GIS, from my perspective. All right. Thanks for all the questions. I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful trading day, and I shall talk to everyone tomorrow. Bye for now.